Hey everyone, we are back with another Tech Bite, and today we're going to be talking about the ancestor binding coming from Uno Toolkit. So what this is a markup extension that provides relative binding based on a given ancestor type. So you might find yourself a lot of times inside of a data template within your XAML, and you're basically constricted to the data context of that data template. What this allows you to do is specify, I want to have this bindings data context set to whatever is an ancestor that you can break out of that data template and bind to anything that's above it, right? And so this comes into play a lot of the times when you're within a list view and you have your items template where you're inside the data template and you'd like to access the data context of maybe the parent page data context instead of the, just the data context of the item itself. So let's jump into some code and explain what I just mentioned. So what we're looking at here is we have a small application that I created, and it's just going to be a text block, and it's just going to be a list view underneath it, right? And before we jump into that, let's look at the main data context of this page that we have. It's going to be using this main view model. And this main view model is just going to have two properties on it called SumText and items. So SumText is going to be what our binding to our text block at the top is set to, and items is going to be our item source for this list view. And so you see that the data, so basically our item template data context will just be whatever the values are for this data. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we look back here, we can see this app running right now, and you'll see that we have our from data context up here, which is just going to be the sum text that we bound to. And we have each one of our list views, right? So this is a list view item. This is another list view item. And you'll see I'll make it more clear by selecting one. And so there you go. That's our first list view item. And so you'll see that we do have access, obviously, to the data context of the item template specific for this list view item. But we're also able, through the ancestor binding, to access that sum text property on that main view model for our main page. We're also able to access specific properties of other elements within the XAML tree, right? So here we're accessing the tag property of our actual list view, and here we're accessing the tag property of the page that we're actually within. So if we look back at that XAML, this is our list view item, and here's our data template. And so here are all those text blocks, right? So we have that main data binding, and you'll see that these are ancestor bindings for things like the current view models data context. And so I'll zoom out a little bit and bring it here. And so our that sum text, we're actually accessing it through the data context.sumText property of our list view, right? So we're saying this binding should hook up to the list view that it finds within this tree, and then set the binding to that item's data context.sumText. Same way that we're doing it for the list view's tag property and the page tag property. So you remember we had that from list view and from page. We actually go up here and you'll see that our page does have a tag property, and we've set it to from page, and that's how we get that binding there. Now, there's one extra step that we could do here. This scenario for ancestor binding, usually a lot of the times you're using this within a list view, so within a list view's item template. And so a lot of the time it's redundant to continue to say, okay, my ancestor type is the list view. My ancestor type is the list view, because you always want to have your parent as your ancestor type when you're within that item template. So what we can actually do here is we can remove that ancestor type list view and that ancestor binding. And we do have a shortcut called ItemsControlBinding. Now, ItemsControlBinding basically is using ancestor binding behind the scenes, and it's just automatically looking for the first items control within the tree. Starting from itself, it starts to look upwards, and it'll set that as what you can then put bindings on top of, right? So if we were to run this exact same application, but now with the items control bindings, you'll see that we have and it opened up on another screen. You'll see that we have the same application, and everything's working the same, right? So we're getting from that main data context the sum text, and we're still able to access the tag properties from the list view itself and from things outside of the list view, just as we were before. So that is a real quick overview of the ancestor binding, as well as the helper markup extension, the items control binding. So definitely go check out the docs. This code will be up on a GitHub repo that'll be available in the description. And Yeah, go check it out and build something cool. I hope you learned something. We'll catch you in the next one.